This is going to be my personal story with Green Day. It's going to be my journey over the years as a Green Day fan, from the beginning all the way up till now. I think this is a pretty interesting concept. Feel free to share your experiences as a Green Day fan. I do have across from me all of their albums stacked up, of course, in chronological order, just in case I get a little confused or need some reassurance as to where I'm at. But let's just go ahead and get started. I had heard of Green Day before I became a fan. I was born in 1985, and in 1994, I was in fourth grade, and I had heard some of the songs on the radio. I believe, with my parents listening to modern music, but I didn't really pay any attention to it. And my earliest Green Day memory would probably be in elementary school. A friend of mine wearing a Dookie Green Day T-shirt, and I thought, hey, I know that band. But that was about it in elementary school. It was the Nimrod era that got me. In 1997, 1998, my mom was driving me to school, and we would listen to different things in the car. And being in middle school and wanting to get into my own kind of music, I was listening to the pop stations, the rock stations, what have you. And on the way to middle school, Good Riddance came on the radio. I loved it. My mom loved it. And we wanted to buy the album. And as you did back then, you had those Columbia House catalogs where you could order, 10,000 CDs for a penny, or however that worked. And my mom bought me a copy of Nimrod. I still have the original Nimrod right there in my stack. She ordered it for me, and I remember, I'm going to get emotional just talking about Nimrod. We got to get the tripod set up for the Nimrod. The tripod, the Nimrod. The shirt is really tight. 20 years has gone so fat. You know what I'm saying? The microphone's on. So my mom bought me a copy of Nimrod, and I went into my room, had a little blue boom box in there, and I put the CD in. And again, I'd heard a little bit by Green Day. I kind of knew that they existed, but I put in Nimrod, and oh my gosh, I did not expect what I was hearing. There was a lot of foul language. All the songs are super fast, super energetic, super punk rock. And I had been getting into those kind of bands. Like, that was the stuff that was attracting me on the radio and in the music videos. But I hadn't really delved deep into this punk rock thing yet. But it was Nimrod in my little blue boombox that instantly transformed me into a punk rocker. Every song was a banger except Hashinka. That's trash. But every song other than Hashinka was amazing. It was just how I felt as a little 12, 13-year-old dude. And I loved it. I loved every song. I shared it with my parents. They liked it. They liked it a lot. And we were just all into the Green Day train from there on out. Now, during the Nimrod era, I was not an international super fan just yet. I was getting into Red Hot Chili Peppers, Blink-182, The Offspring, Kid Rock, Red Hot Chili Peppers, all those big 90s bands. I was just Vertical Horizon, Third Eye Blind. I was just eating up all that stuff that was popping off in 97, 98. Man, you got to revisit the the Top of the Pops in 97, 98. Oh, so good. But Green Day were just putting out a solid album in Nimrod. And so I liked it. My parents liked it. And then around the Warning era, I think Warning was the first Green Day album that I was kind of waiting on because, Nimrod was my introduction. I got it a little bit after it came out. I got Warning pretty quickly. I don't want to say I was running out on release date just yet back then in 2000, but I ran out and got Warning, or my parents got me Warning pretty early on in its release, and I loved it. I didn't have any indication of what was going on within Green Day at the time because the internet was there, but I wasn't on Wikipedia. I wasn't on the Green Day Authority just yet. So I got Warning and I loved it. I was like, man, it's just like Nimrod. It's amazing, but it's a little bit different, right? So I loved Nimrod, loved Warning. And then, again, I didn't know about any of the internal struggles of the Green Day band from Oakland, California in 2001, 2002, and 2003. We know now they were going through a very tumultuous time in those years. But we got international super hits, and I got that. So we got Nimrod, then we got Warning, then we got international super hits, then we got Shenanigans. And I will never, this is a big memory for me and Green Day. Me and my parents went on a camping vacation. We rented a cabin and I stayed up in the loft. It was 1,000 degrees in that loft. There was all these phone numbers that I wrote down to call later. But we went on this camping trip, and on the drive, I think I made a cassette or a CD for us to listen to in the car, and I took off Sex, Blood, and Booze. I took that one off, but other than that, my parents loved Warning. They loved Nimrod. We had blasted the international super hits. I've got a picture of me sitting in this cabin with international super hits by me. I was listening on a little Walkman in the back seat too. So I was just getting into all these Green Day hits. Nimrod, Warning, Shenanigans. If it counted as a studio record, it might be the best one ever. And then in 2003, back then, everything went quiet on the Green Day front. So you're having to listen to Pearl Jam a little bit more in 2003 because the Green Day band were nowhere to be seen, nowhere to be found. And they were going through some things. There was these guys called the Network that were causing problems for them back then. But then all of a sudden, without any of the negativity or the struggles or the Network even, Green Day were working on something, right? They were working on something massive. And the word is so incredible when you started hearing about this really incredible, magical thing that Green Day were working on. It just instantly, from the first little snippets and articles about their next project, it was like the entire world knew that it was going to be something incredible, something different. There was just a literal magic in the air in 2003, 2004, as the band geared up for their 7th album. And I remember my earliest thoughts about American Idiot. It seems like I heard Holiday first somehow. It's like I heard a leak of Holiday. I know they were playing it. They were doing some live performances of it, and then American Idiot, and there was just a lot of buzz about the next Green Day album. And I knew it was going to be something incredible, something special. And it was probably in between the Shenanigans and American Idiot. It was somewhere in there that I began collecting the pre-Nimrod Green Day albums. Insomniac, 39 Smooth, Kerplunk, Dookie. So I was starting to go back and revisit all those because it's all great, right? Like there's no bad stuff in Green Day's catalog, in my opinion. It's just, man, every song is amazing except Hashinka. That song's just terrible. I don't know what's going on there. That song is terrible. Everything else is all right, Nightlife included. But American Idiot was like on the brink of just doing something really incredible. And like I said, my parents, both my mom and dad, grandparents, cousins, everybody was on board with my love of Green Day. I remember like my parents trying to play some of it for grandparents and stuff, and they're like, "That's nice, turn it off." So that was fun. But American Idiot I was 20 when American Idiot came out, and now I'm 38. So I do remember running to Best Buy on release day. I got to Best Buy before they opened. I had to buy the book version, the CD version. I may have bought 2 standard versions and then one of the deluxe book versions. I've owned at least 4 copies of American Idiot over the years. Wait, nope, 5? Probably 5. I've probably owned 5 copies of American Idiot over the years. But that album, I was going through a lot in 2004 and 2005, just as a young man in America, 20 years old. And I remember when I got it, you need to listen to it front to back, right? You got to start from the beginning and listen to the end. I went I was going crazy listening to American Idiot because I knew that the next song was 10 minutes long. It's 9 minutes. Not 10 minutes. Stop saying it's 10 minutes. But I remember my first listen of Jesus of Suburbia, and I hated it. It was the first and only time I've ever heard a song and thought, that is way too much reverb. This new Green Day era is awful. This does not sound like Green Day, and this is terrible. I'm going to hate this. This is not Nimrod. This is not Shenanigans or Super Hits. But then I had to go back and listen to it again. And again. And again. And I was like, well, wait a minute. I got to get to Holiday. And I soon quickly realized, like just a few minutes into Jesus of Suburbia, that this is like no ordinary album. I got all into the story. I was writing scripts for movies about it. I was all these documents on my computer about American Idiot and the themes and these words that relate and like come up again and again in the album. And my parents loved it. I loved it. Everybody that I knew loved it. And you can see the shirt. I actually went to, let's see. I had to go see Green Day in concert. I had to see this American Idiot tour. My dad and I and a friend of mine from work, we went to see Green Day live in 2005. And my dad was a casual fan. And my friend from work, she was a casual fan. But they both wanted to see Green Day. And they both left that concert saying it was the best concert they'd ever seen in their life. And I remember My Chemical Romance opened for Green Day. And I was barely familiar with the name. And I was not impressed with MCR at the time. I wish now that I'd known more, but it was like I saw them right before they were kind of huge. So we were just kind of waiting for Green Day to come out, right? Incredible. In the years after American Idiot, I played that album so much. I got Green Day Bluegrass, Pickin' on Green Day. That was an album that came out the same year as American Idiot. Then we got The Bullet in the Bible that celebrated the live performances of the American Idiot tour. Now, on a personal level, this is my personal story with Green Day. My mom had been diagnosed with cancer around the American Idiot tour, or the American Idiot era. So we were dealing with that. It was a very emotional time for everybody. But we're moving on to 2006, where Green Day would release individual singles, and I was absolutely enamored with the 2006 and 2007 stuff that was coming from Green Day. The Saints Are Coming, the Simpsons theme song, all that stuff. The Working Class Hero was a really great one, and I was really obsessed with those as things in my life got darker. We all know there was like a significant gap between American Idiot and Bullet in a Bible and the next Green Day studio album, 21st Century Breakdown. I kind of, it's like, I know that my mom she was not able to hear 21st Century Breakdown. She did hear some of the earlier, I think, the leaks and maybe some of the teasers for 21st Century Breakdown. But a really a tragedy in real life that connected with Green Day's tragedy, or the tragic music of American Idiot. I remember my grandfather, my mom's dad, passing away, and I'll never forget like when me and the family, my mom and my dad, were being driven to the cemetery, and I'll never forget my mom being so upset about her dad, my grandpa, passing away, and she was crying, and she said, this is just like Wake Me Up When September Ends. It was September when he died, and that song is just it will always carry that weight, because it was written about that, and my mom losing her dad and then her passing away shortly after that. So that song, Wake Me Up When September Ends, it really hits me hard, thinking about my mom being upset over her dad, Grandpa, and then her passing away shortly after that. It's just really difficult. And before we move on to the next era, I know with 21st Century Breakdown, of course, I ran out, bought all the different versions of this album. I'll say the song that stands out on this one that's just been a huge part of my life is definitely 21 Guns. I've shared this song on social media about, Billie Joe has often kind of been mysterious about what 21 Guns is about, but ultimately it's about his struggles during the American Idiot era. He said it could be about war or divorce, but it's actually about just being completely burned out and really struggling and just giving up on life. So now we are in like the 2011 to present day Green Day stuffs, and what we're going to be talking about now is the American Idiot Broadway era. And so after 21st Century Breakdown, I got married for the first time. And I remember this being an issue purchase because it was one of those where I bought this and my first wife thought it was a bit stupid to buy this for the one new song. But I tried to explain, but I can't explain. I think it's love. I broke it. That's part of my brand new Green Day story. I broke this album on camera in 2024. So I got fussed at a little bit for this one. No hard feelings. I also got fussed at for this one too. And this is 2011, and had to hear that Cigarettes and Valentines. So I was going through some issues in first marriage, and Awesome as Bleep, and the Broadway musical soundtrack were not helping things any. I do remember the Broadway show. I was really excited to go see it. Me and my first wife went to see that, and that was basically the last thing we did as a married couple, and we got divorced after that. So in some ways, oh God, and in a lot of ways, and particularly moving forward in the Green Day catalog, I'm going to have a lot of similar problems to the people in Green Day going forward. Unfortunately, with cancer diagnoses and a bit of alcohol overusage. And we're going to get into that. So, Green Day were on a high after American Idiot. American Idiot was huge. Even though it's not looked upon as favorably now, 21st Century Breakdown was a massive hit for them. And the Foxborough Hot Tubs was obviously a fun little side project that did fairly well. And then we got these guys. And I was going through a divorce in 2012. And I was drinking a lot. And I was gaining a lot of weight. And I was just having a real bad time. I was driving around. I was walking the streets alone at night, all boozed up. And then Uno, Dos, and Tre came out, and it seemed like the reception at first was good. Everybody was excited. Everybody was talking about like the first 6 songs on Uno just being some of the best that Billie Joe had ever written. They were doing all these shows. They were doing all these wild ass videos. And it just seemed like this was going to be the biggest thing they had ever done. A triple album. It was going to be great. And again, kind of like earlier on, like nobody was really suspecting anything was wrong. But then iHeartRadio happened. iHeartRadio essentially just destroyed whatever chances these 2 albums had of any success whatsoever. And it was very disturbing to see Billie Joe going through that, especially as I was going through the same thing at the time. As I drove around in 2012 and 2013 listening to the trilogy from front to back, I think that was a year, I think I started Spotify around the trilogy era. Going back a little ways, I know I joined Green Day Authority as the build-up to 21st Century Breakdown began. I know I got some of those leaks. I got a weird leak of 21st Century Breakdown where it's like a weird Kid Rock piano at the beginning of it that's like a minute or so long. You guys know what I'm talking about? Leave a comment if you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, the trilogy era, I was staying out late. I was partying too much during the trilogy era, and I think pretty sure when I was driving around in 2012 and 2013 drinking excessively, um, listening to the trilogy. I'm pretty sure I was living off of cheap beer, the trilogy, and Little Caesars pizzas. Very dangerous lifestyle. And then this shit came out, and I was diagnosed with testicular cancer in 2014. And so Billie Joe was getting better, or had gotten better by 2014. And then we had poor Jason White being diagnosed with tonsil cancer. We had Brittany Durnt of Mike Durnt wife fame, and she does her own stuff too. She's successful in her own rights. But Jason White, Brittany of the Mike Durnt family, facing cancer around the same time that I was. I do remember feeling like me and Brittany were kind of in the fight together, as she had breast cancer, I had testicular cancer, and it was tough. It seemed like things were going bad for everyone. I'd kind of, in between the trilogy with the pizza and the beer and the uno, dos, and tres, I did try to lose a lot of weight in 2013, and then I got sick in 2014 and had the battle of my life for most of that year, and then the beginning of 2015 as well. And, I kicked cancer's ass. Brittany was kicking its ass. Jason White was kicking its ass. And we all came out on top. And that was an emotional thing of just, music got me through it. Music, a lot of the trilogy, Demolicious is okay, but a lot of Green Day music helped get me through it. A lot of friends and family, co-workers, even some people, a lot of people were helping me. And this is, we're going to get really emotional with the next release. I remember it seemed like there was a lot of problems there were a lot of problems during the trilogy, right? The trilogy was not promoted in any kind of way. And it was time, like people felt like it was time for Green Day to really do something different on the next record. But what could they do? They had put out the best record of all time, and then they went bigger, louder, crazier, and then they did a triple album that was trying to be bigger, louder, crazier than that. And what could they do at this point? And I remember, because American Idiot ran out on release day, 21st Century Breakdown, I ran out on release day, Trilogy ran out on release day. I was buying book versions of all the different albums. And Revolution Radio would be the same thing. But I remember I had my laptop on the kitchen table. I was there. I was ready to hear the first time ever the new single, Still Breathing by Green Day. And I remember listening to it and just sobbing uncontrollably. Like, Brittany beat it. Jason beat it. I beat it. We're all still breathing. And every time I sing Still Breathing, I change the lyrics to like, I'm like a child who lost his only mother. I'm like a father barely keeping it together. Youngblood also has a special place in my heart because I have gotten drunk and fallen into some hedges. Let me tell you that right now. Too Dumb to Die, one of the greatest songs ever recorded, as well as Forever Now and Outlaws. Just a really great album. Revisit it if you think it's not one of their best. But God, Still Breathing, that first time hearing it, oof, just fuck. Also, I'm pretty sure that I got remarried again during the Revolution Radio era. And I got yelled at for buying this because, it only had a few new songs. But can we just agree that, two CDs in, the 2010s and this one in 2017, it ain't breaking the bank. You know what I'm saying? So I think we did all right. We did all right, even though I blew our money on this. I did get this cool Revolution Radio blanket from the second ex-wife, so I guess it wasn't all bad. All you gotta do is say it, divorce, divorce, divorce. All you gotta do is say it, divorce. You guys like some Alex Cameron? I didn't think so. You guys are Green Day nerds. Purchasing this album would lead to a 2018 divorce. I did go, I don't know exactly where it fits into this narrative, but I did go and see Heart Like a Hand Grenade in a theater. That was really cool. It was one of those where you can eat and drink while you watch the movie. And I had some kind of issue with the ticket, but they let me in anyway. Purchased this at some point in life. And this, I remember this movie. I was I had to tell people, I had to tell my parents. I was like, don't watch this, ever. I remember talking about this movie at work one time, and somebody's like, Chris, there's somebody behind you. And I'm like, oh no, I was talking about horrible puppet things. With 21st Century Breakdown, I've always gotten to hear the new Green Day album a little bit early. I think 21st Century Breakdown was just on the internet, right? You didn't even have to go to one of those weird scammy, leak places. The trilogy, I think, was easily accessible. Revolution Radio was pretty easy to get, and then as we got into the later eras, it kind of became a little bit more complex to hear music before it's released. You got to destroy your computer. You just got to download viruses to hear new stuff now before it's released. But fortunately, with Father of All, we were chit-chatting on the Green Day Authority, and somebody hooked me up with an early release of Father of All. It sounded kind of crummy, but I was able to play it on this big speakers on the TV somehow, and I loved it. I loved everything about it, except maybe Stab You in the Heart is a little bit of a weaker moment, but I really like this album a lot. And then the world shut down. And that was such a crazy time, right? It really seemed like an end of the world type thing. I remember, everybody was out of work, and you had to wait in line at the stores, and they were counting people with clickers, and the power was going out, and I was sitting on my front porch wow, listening to Father of All, and the world is coming to an end. It's like a party at the end of the world. As far as my own personal stories with this album, really great, really great music here. And 20 years or more, it's gone so fast. Actually, let's see, I've been a Green Day fan for 26 years, going on 27 years, and I knew about them, since '94. OG. And to make it a little more lighthearted, check it out. I went to the Savior's early listening party. That was so awesome. January 13th, 2024. Got to hear the album early. I went out there. That was such a cool time. I'm so glad I went. I pre-ordered the pink and black vinyl. I pre-ordered the CD, and I pre-ordered another CD that was, I actually wanted 2 copies of the signed CD. They couldn't get them. They said that like they were allocated like just a handful of albums, and they got requests for like 7,000, and they thought that like the region, like the entire state of South Carolina just needed 2,000, and like the one record store got like 7,000 requests for them, so I couldn't get it signed. But that was a really special event, going and meeting fellow Green Day fans. I got to talk to somebody that watches some of my videos about the 1972 Saviors era. So that was pretty cool, getting to talk to another Green Day fan in real life. I don't meet too many of them in real life other than friends and family members. I guess who else would I be talking to, right? Just strangers. Just like, hey, you like Green Day? But now we're in the Saviors era, and I wasn't able to. I haven't been able to see them since the American Idiot tour. I did give up. I did give up a chance to see them on the Revolution Radio touring cycle because I wanted. I chose to spend time with my then wife. I should have went, right? Should have went, but I was being a good guy back then, and now I again, like 26 years has gone so fast. I am on a journey to hear every song ever recorded, and so far no other artist has given me the joy that Green Day has with each and every release. Even Hashinka, being as terrible as it is, that's a great song. That's how good Green Day is. That's so frustrating to me when you're talking about a band, and is it is or is it are? But I think it is. So Green Day are the #1 band in my ranking system here on the channel. Included in that is Billie Joe and Nora, The Network for some reason, even though it's not Green Day, Foxborough Hot Tubs, the Rodeo Queens, all that stuff is included. I would very much like to hear your story, your personal journey with Green Day over the years. So leave that in the comments. Make it as long as you want to, as many comments as it needs to make that happen. And I love making videos about Green Day, so this was a lot of fun.